everyone, it's Samantha. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing a video that I have been kind of hinting at for a while now, and it is going to be how to write a book for fun on Google Docs. This is not professional in any way. So if you are an actual writer, which I don't think you would have clicked on this video if you are, but if you are an actual writer, I would recommend maybe looking at another video because this is not for getting things published and having this whole team being involved in your writing. This is just for fun if you love writing like I do and you want to act professional, but it's not really professional yet. That's kind of where I am right now. I write for fun with one of my friends. Today I'm going to be sharing everything, my resources, my process, the tools that I use, and all of the different hidden features of Google Docs, which I think is really cool, and it was so fun to dive into that. Feel free to use my process. I will not be mad if you copy everything I do because I think it really works. And I want to help you guys out there if you are wondering how to start or how to use Google Docs. You don't have to be like my age if you maybe don't know how to use all of the latest technology, because I know it can be really confusing. Hopefully this video will help you as well. I am not being told to say anything good about Google Docs. It is just the program that I have always used and always loved. I have to say it's the best thing I found and what works for me. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into hopefully a really informative video about how to write a book on Google Docs. First things first, I'm going to get into writing resources and things that help me with writing and storytelling. So the first thing is doing research. I have my collection of Grimm's fairy tales, which is super helpful for the genre that I write because I do write fairy tale retellings and fantasy books a lot. I do need to do a lot of research, so it always helps having a paper copy of my resources instead of searching it up online and finding a bunch of different answers for all of my questions. I get it right from their original stories, and you can find these collections pretty much anywhere that you find books, even online as well. I would say try and find some of the lengthier collections because some of the books don't always have every single story that they've ever written, and I don't think there is a book out there that has every single one, but I do recommend trying to find the thickest one to make sure you have the greatest possible chance. Keep in mind that there are many fairy tale authors if you are looking for these books, so I only have the Grimm's fairy tale ones. I do want to get the Hans Christian Andersen ones and, other authors because that can be really helpful as well. The next thing that I use are notebooks. So I have this pink notebook that I use for a lot of my outlining and planning. I don't go into as much detail with this notebook. These are just some of my notes for a few different books that I was writing, and the layout is very simple. It has lines and a little spot for the date, but I find that ringed notebooks, kind of similar to binders, really do help. The next notebook that I use, I go into so much more detail, and this is what the cover looks like. And it reminds me of a fairy tale notebook with the leather and the way it opens, and I don't know, I think it's really, really cute. So when you open it up, I just have all of my sections with my details. I have things that are way more detailed in here, like maps and outlines, like stuff like that. So that is where you will find most of my detailed planning. It's right in here. Next, we are going to talk about the layout that I use for my books, and I basically start out by having my cover as the first thing on the first page, then moving on to a map. I have absolutely no system when it comes to creating maps. I just start drawing and see where my pencil takes me, and then the spacing is super off on a phone, but I also have my dedication, a little quote that represents something about the book. I like to normally start my fairy tale books especially with a prologue, just to kind of introduce some characters and start it off really mysteriously. I also use page breaks just by copy and pasting some cute designs that I find on my search engine, which I find is really helpful to make a really realistic book. And then I continue with my chapters. I like to do point of view chapters and perspective chapters, which helps with the flow of my stories. There's also an outline on the right so you can see which chapter belongs to who, which is so helpful. And then I like to end my stories with an epilogue, followed by a little note from the author. I find that this is my time to connect with my, for now, fake audience and talk a little bit about what inspired me to write the book and just some things that I think they might appreciate knowing. And then if I'm writing a series, I normally like to end it with a preview of the following book to get them excited about it. You can also get a lot of the main writing resources that I'm talking about in this video on your devices. So I have an entire folder on my phone dedicated to writing resources and things I use for writing. You can also get Google Docs on your phone, which can come in handy when you're on the go. So next I'm going to go into more detail for these digital resources. First, we're going to look at my drive. So I have all of these different folders in my drive. For example, books to finish are basically the books that I need to finish still. And in that folder, I actually have my rainy day book projects, which I will show you in a second. But you can easily create a new folder, upload an image, use the camera in Google Drive for that, and all of these other really cool features. In my books to finish folder, these document links will basically bring you directly to Google Docs. And when we go back, I will show you how I have a folder inside a folder, which is very simple to do. I show you later on in this screen recording, but my rainy day book projects is a folder inside a folder for all the books I want to work on in the future, but just not right now. Going back, I also have a finished books folder, which is all of the books that I have finished, and I have these in separate categories as well, like fairy tale books, Christmas books, realistic fiction books, and stuff like that. And again, these are links that will bring you directly to that document when you click on them, which comes in handy a lot when I'm trying to find a book to work on. I also have two folders of writing resources. The first one I titled Finished Writing Resources, basically the writing resources I don't need right now because those books are finished. And then the writing resources one are all of the resources I am currently using for my current books. And you can easily create these folders by going to the plus sign at the bottom of the screen and hitting folder. It's going to create a new folder that I just titled book covers, and I can use that to drag in any document that I want. This is easier to do on a computer, I do have to say. And you can delete them by going up to the three dots at the top and hitting remove. There are also all of these other features which are really cool that you could explore when you go into your Google Drive yourself. But next, we're going to move on to Google Slides. I use Google Slides not a ton, but it does help when I'm creating book covers. So basically what I do is create a new document, or a presentation, I should say, and I just gave it a quick title. So I delete any text box on the screen, and then I go to my search engine and search up what I want the cover to look like. And this normally takes a long time. I just did it super quick for this example. So I decided to go with this one. I'm basically holding down on that photo and saving it to my camera roll and inserting it into the Google slide. And then it took a while to kind of size it correctly, but once it's sized correctly, I am then going to crop it if I need to. I didn't need to for this one, but I normally do. And then I added a text box to create the title, but you're also going to want to make sure that you include your bylines, so who the book is by, you basically. And how I did this was I just wrote in the title, changed the size, changed the color, and changed the font, and placed it where I wanted to on the picture. You can also go onto Google Slides and Google Docs to experiment with this yourself. It's very easy to follow with all of the different symbols and labels that they have on there. So if you maybe don't understand some of the things I am teaching you, you can go on and try it for yourself to see if you get it. And I'm adding these by hitting the plus sign at the top of the screen. Again, this is on a phone, which is a lot harder than doing it on a computer. On a computer, you have a lot of different options opposed to doing it on a phone. Then I did my byline. And once that was finished, I took a screenshot of the page and cropped it so that it was as close to being as large as possible. Now you have a book cover. I basically saved it to my photos and added it into a blank document that I just titled The Cafe as an example. So now I'm going to start talking about my process from start to finish with a book. So first I like to decide what I'm writing. If I decide that I want to do a fairy tale retelling book, I will go into my Grimm's fairy tale book and find the fairy tale I want to retell and read it through to see what I can change, what I can retell about it, and stuff that really either confuses me or interests me. I find that if something confuses me, I like to use that as a base for my books and kind of elaborate on that and explain maybe something that makes more sense than what they originally had. So for example, if something confuses me in their story, I will go in and fix it so that it makes more sense for the reader and so that they are not confused like I was when I read the original story. Now that we have that out of the way, I normally like to start by creating a map. This next part is all about my world building kind of process. So if you are writing a realistic fiction book that takes place in the real world, you don't have to do this. I haven't found many people out there who start with a map, but I do like to do that just because the majority of my stories take place, especially the fairy tale ones, on a quest or on some sort of journey. And the journey goes throughout the land, and I want to figure out the lay of the land, what route they're going to travel on, and the stops along the way so that I can weave them into my story and outline. So, for example, if I wanted them to travel straight up the center, I would need to do the majority of the book in the woods because that is the main feature of the center of this land. But if I wanted it to kind of zigzag, they would have to go through the Kadish Mountains, through the Goblin Woods, to the Old Castle, to the Bramble, and figure out all of these different things. So it normally helps to plan out their route. And sometimes if I know I am creating a series, I will plan out every single route for every single book so that I know I never got to the Kingdom of Kalia in my first book. Let's do it in the second book, and I figured that whole thing out as well. Once that is complete, we go to pretty much the hardest part next to actually writing the story, which is outlining it. So I have a bunch of different outlines in this notebook. I'm going to flip open to a few to show you. This is for sure my most detailed outline, and I highlighted all of the parts that I already wrote in this one, and it's a lot. It is definitely a lot of outlining. I like to add a lot of detail to my outlines. I feel like it just helps me when I'm writing to never have the excuse of what do I write next? I don't know what happens next. Because then if I say, well, I don't know what happens next, my brain tells me you have the outline, you do know what happens next. This normally takes the longest time, especially if I'm writing it out by hand. I have lately been doing it all in a blank planning sheet document, which I'll show you in a second in this video, which helps a lot. But yeah, especially when I'm doing it by hand, it definitely takes a lot of time. The next thing I do is open a blank document, title it, start with my whole outline of what I just showed you with the title, the map, the dedication, and all of that. I also figure all of that out. So who I'm dedicating the book to, if it even has a dedication at all yet. If I want to include a quote, I normally only do that for fairy tale books. And then I also include page numbers and all of this stuff, which I'll get into in a second. But let's head into the whole planning sheet aspect of my planning. I'm now going to use a realistic fiction book to switch it up, so let's get into this. Sorry, there's a lot of jumping around everywhere during this video, but I like to start off by creating the blank document, as I mentioned, titling it and categorizing it. So first I have all of my characters, their names, and their descriptions of who they are. I have things like that cater to specific books, like descriptions and the basic outline. I also normally love to do a Pinterest board and grab just a bunch of photos off of the internet that inspire me. And it's also super easy to share these documents. So if you are co-writing with someone, it is super easy to do that. All right, this is the part that I'm pretty sure everyone has been waiting for: how to go about writing your document and how to do all of the really cool features of Google Docs. I have been using this for years and years and years, so I'm going to give you all of the tips that I have found that really help. So the first thing I'm starting with is resizing my image. On the phone, as I mentioned earlier, all of the spacing is off, all the sizing is off. So if you want a true look at what the document really will look like when you print it out, you want to go on a computer and fix it. Zooming in a little bit, we're going to now go to the insert section, page numbers, and hit wherever you want your page numbers to show up. I then put a dot after it just so it looks more professional, change the size, change the font, and I have page numbers so it looks like an actual professional book. Next, we are going to do our chapter header. You could also do a prologue for this instead of a chapter, but I changed the size and the font. My default is around 29 for the size and then whatever font you're feeling that day. And I normally just put the chapter number, like chapter whatever, dash whoever's point of view it is in. And you can either move this to the center of the page or the corner, really just depending on your style. That's what I'm going to say for a lot of these tips and this feedback. Whatever you're feeling for this book, whatever type of book you feel like it should be, that is what's going to decide all of this. Next, I'm going to go to my default size and font. So my default font is Allegria. The font number is 12, and I started writing this, so I'm just going to read what I was writing. This is what I found looks the most like an exact book, that font and that size. Then I just start writing, and you can either indent the first sentence or not. I feel like it depends on the overall layout and how you think it will end up looking. So I just wrote this random thing about a cafe. Not my best writing, but I wasn't really trying here because it was just a simple example. Then I got into like actually talking by typing. So this is how I would start a new paragraph. Simply by indenting and continuing to write. I know that I need to start a new paragraph when I change the subject or change the location. Basically, whenever there is a break, pause, or a mood change, I create a new paragraph. Let's talk about page breaks. Basically, I go to the next tab over and search for page breaks, and I resize it, include it in the document, and I'm going to tell you how I do that right now. So I look up some images online, choose the one I want, copy and paste it into the document, and size it in the middle of the page so that it fits perfectly. I use page breaks when I have a large chunk of time missing from my story or when the time changes abruptly. For example, if I start the story in the morning and decide to pick it back up in the afternoon, time according to when everything is happening in my story, not the actual time of day I'm writing it, I will use a page break to show that time has passed, and normally will start the new paragraph with some indicator like I included the page break. Later that afternoon, a few hours later, eventually it was time for dinner. So stuff like that. If I have a mistake or grammatical error, the Google program will automatically notify me by automatically changing my simple error or underlining the word I misspelled in a specific color. Red if the word is spelled incorrectly, blue if the grammar is wrong. Sometimes Google will recommend a word in gray next to my previous writing. For example, let's see if I can do this. Oh, then I paused. There's a grammatical error underlining right above us. See, I can choose to accept my mistake by clicking on the words they are suggesting. I can X out the correction because it is incorrect or I don't want to correct it. I can report feedback about the suggestion like it's wrong, it's incorrect, I don't want it, or I can do an overall entire document spell/grammar check. Let's get back to what I was saying about gray recommendations. So I'm now going to try to get this to work. Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does, but there it was. Hi, my name is, it recommended name is in gray. Next, we're going to do a full screen tour. You can present to a Google Meet, which we're not going to worry about today. You can comment to other editors, and you can share the document to other editors as well so that they can see or edit what you're doing. Next, we're going to look at document history, so all of the different versions from when you first created the document to your latest changes here, and you can always restore that version. You can also print out the document, undo or redo your edits. You can do your spell and grammar check right there. You can zoom in to your document if you want to see it more clearly. You can change the type of text, and that is going to affect the outline on the left-hand side right there. So it's going to show you your chapters or your prologues and basically the order, so that'll affect that. You can change your font, your size, create bold, italicized, underlined, text color, highlight color, all of that. You can paste a link. You can include an image. You can change your line and aligning rules. You can change line spacing, you can do different lists like checklists or bullet lists, and you can increase or decrease your indent. And you can also change your mode too, so you can suggest or view or edit. You probably want to be in the editing section. And you can change the title, hit that blue document thing over to the left to go back to your original document homepage, and you have all of these different file options, edit options. My favorite edit option is the find and replace, so you can actually find a word and replace it with something else to save you editing time, which I think is super duper cool. You have all of your viewing options, your inserting options, formatting, helps with different text rules and underlining, italicizing. You can do your spelling and grammar check under tools and a bunch of other different tools that you can use, and you have different add-ons and help. Over to the right of your document, you're going to be able to see what page you're on exactly. I think I now covered everything that you need to know about storytelling and writing. Now it is basically just up to you to come up with a story idea and create a story based on everything that I told you today. So I hope that you have a really fun time creating that story. I know I love storytelling and writing, and it's such a huge passion of mine. So hopefully I can help some of you guys out there if you weren't sure how to start, what process to use, and I hope that you learned something today, and we'll try something new in the future. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I will see you in the next one. Disney vlogs are coming super duper soon, so get ready for that. We have a lot of fun content coming up on this channel, so stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up. I will see you guys in the next video.